Well, so we have the Member of Parliament for Ifutu in the studio, Alex, and Afenyo-Markin. A very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Roland.
Yes, and
how are you?
We're privileged to have you in the studio.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay.
I always learn from you.
Oh, how? You're a lawyer. So now let's begin the critical issues. And on the front page of the Daily Graphic, and I'm sure will be shown on the screen very soon, it says a former finance minister applauds budget and says we also need to make sure that we look at we strengthen the weak fundamental. This seems also to have been something that was consistent with what a think tank also made known on Wednesday, the IFS and the Institute for Fiscal Studies. But consistently we've had this being the refrain or the narrative when it comes to analysis of the budget. As presented by Ken Ofori-Atta, the finance minister. What would you say about it?
Well, there is a general position by experts that this economy needs to be properly formalized. And in formalizing it, you need support systems to be in place. So what they are saying is right and proper, and I agree, because if you are running an economy and you cannot easily predict, then it affects the business community. People can speculate and it will throw your economy out of gear. Already, we have a highly geared program. In other words, between revenue and expenditure, we have a very tight space. So if you are able to put your fundamentals right, you put in a system where ghost names are totally taken off. You put in a system where expenditures are not done haphazardly, that you do so according to plan. You make sure that you have a reliable data, and those who are getting you the data are giving them to you professionally. Then it will be in accord with getting your economy on the right footing. So I agree with Dr. Dufour. He hasn't been a governor, a businessman, a finance minister before. Yes, I mean, the position he echoed is what IFS, which is owned by him, saying that yes, the budget is good. At least if you look at the realignment, the cost-effective approach, the cost-saving approach in this budget, seriously, people had said that MPP could not deliver on its promises. The promises were just too ambitious. But we were emphasizing waste in our campaign. That look, it isn't the case that we cannot implement. The problem in the old regime was their inability to prioritize and manage the economy properly. So all the waste that previously would go to the district assembly, the district assembly common fund, for instance, a lot of monies are supposed to go there. I have been an assemblyman before. I have been a presiding member before. And most of the things that we approved, our monies will come, and it's like we're paying there. Sometimes there are deductions at local government, deductions at finance, and they buy things for you without you yourself, needing those things. The man says no. Let us refocus. Let's send monies that will be really needed for the purpose of local administration. Let's set up a $1 million fund, which would be monitored so that the implementation or the usage of these funds would have real effect at the grassroots. Don't also forget that the problem in the NDC regime, where all of us criticize, was their inability to touch the lives of the ordinary Ghanaian. They were talking about infrastructure, but between you and me, we know that the ordinary Ghanaian on the street didn't feel the impact of the infrastructure. So it was like they were in their own world and we were in another world. Having been in opposition, I think we've detected that one best way of really rolling out your vision is to have a system in place where the ordinary person or those who are supposed to benefit would benefit. And one way of doing this is to have a policy program, a policy in place where you'll be able to touch the lives of the people. So I agree with those who are suggesting that, look, Let's tackle the fundamentals. And of course, if you look at what the government has done in its first budget, there is a positive indication that yes, efforts are being made in that direction. Let's give ourselves another 12 months and see how far we'll get to. Then I'm sure people will now see that yes, this government is really determined and would be able to succeed. I am very optimistic.
At the end of the day, we know that when all the analysts and even you talk about the weak fundamentals, it means that the structures need to be right. But can only get them if you look at what is usually the precedent in the medium to long term. How do we show up with all the incentives that have been given in the budget for 2017 that could perhaps bridge that gap to set us on a sound footing medium to long term?
You see, all these incentives, what is the aim? The aim is to bring relief. The aim is to stimulate production, make sure that those in the private sector at least have what it takes. Because the complaint has been that there's too much stress on us. Already the cost of energy is high. And then you go to the port, you are paying high taxes. You need some reliefs. You don't want the government to focus on overtaxing you. So now we are opening up. Now look, there's opportunity for you, the private sector, for instance. Increase production. And if you look at the budget, at page 178 of the budget, all the programs to be rolled out under the One District, One Factory, the entrepreneurial training program, the business development program, monies that have been voted for that purpose, the PPP initiatives that are to be rolled out, as well as a special project. We have ministers for that purpose. And the good thing I see about that is that the president is keeping all those things under the Office of Government Machinery for one purpose: direct monitoring. So that
to have some control over.
Of course, because these are flagship initiatives. If you want them to be there, and if these incentives that are supposed to help the private sector, if you don't roll them out successfully, you'll be in trouble, because the aim is to make sure that people benefit. If you don't have an implementation strategy in place for people to benefit, then it comes to cost 90. There's this general view that people hold, and I tend to agree with them. And recently, Honorable Fifi Kwete re-echoed that point, that our problem is not the setting up of factories. Our problem is not the brilliant ideas. Our problem as a country has been with implementation and sustenance. And I agree with Fifi Kwete and many others who express that view. We need an attitudinal change. Roland, honestly speaking, if, for instance, somebody wants to get into soap making business and is able to tap about 5,000 or 10,000 Ghana cedis from Maslock, and that person decides not to pay, it creates a hole in the economy. And it's been going on. Rawlins's time, poverty alleviation program. People took loans, people were giving monies at the grassroots level, they didn't pay. When MPP came and they were being chased to pay, their party came to their rescue. It's like, oh, another party has come and they are persecuting us. So at a point, psychologically, politically, it was not proper for you to chase them. Meanwhile, they have taken money signed for that they will pay. They didn't pay. So what happened to that money? It goes back to affect the same economy, and we accuse the politician as being corrupt. Kufuor came, continued. I remember in my constituency, for instance, at a point, the constituency organizer was being pursued that he was a guarantor, and they took him to court. He also started chasing those individuals, serving them with summons. It became a political matter that the MPP one may alone, they never paid. At least I witnessed it on one occasion in court. Then eventually NDC came, chasing people to pay Maslock, and we were all the same people complaining that there was budget deficit. Monies that had gone out didn't come back, and our people also didn't pay. All right? Then again, NDC came again, put in money at Maslock, created youth enterprise support, all the programs under youth employment, NYEP, which later became, what's the name, I've forgotten. You know, the youth initiative, I mean the programs to support the youth. People took the benefit, they didn't pay. SADA. People took money, they never paid.
Now we have to chase people up again.
And they will not pay. All I want to say is that if this attitude continues, I'm afraid we will not see any impact in all these beautiful programs, because this is a private sector centered approach that we are adopting. This is a private sector minded government that it wants to partner the private sector to create jobs. But in creating these jobs, it's the same Ghanaians who would have to be given the opportunity. So I am making this point rather strongly, that if we as Ghanaians, we don't change our attitude, if we don't embrace this with the full patriotism, that look, I have the initiative, I want to do it, I want to do it and pay back, there will be problem. Then no matter what the government will do, it could come back to square one, and it won't benefit anybody.
Well, before we change the subject and look at the next topic, we also have to tell you that we'll be coming to you live from Kumasi, and Mama Vioso Abuaje and Kojo Yankson, they'll be bringing to you great interviews, trying to dissect the issues in that first special assignment documentary put together by Seth Kwame Boateng. And we want to look at how we can complement efforts and pool a lot more resources, not only from the states, but also from individuals, corporate institutions, to complete that big maternity block at the Komfo Teaching Hospital. And in that documentary, which was premiered late evening of Monday, it showed how the mortality rate in the hospital was still high as a result of the unavailability of beds for maternal mothers, but especially for those who want to also give birth, to have access to a placement and get treated and have good delivery. Well, it's a concern for many health practitioners, not only at the hospital, but also across the country. And throughout the interviews, we've had discussions with members of parliament on the health committee who have had great insight into what needs to be done.